Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the mid-January edition of Tiger Talk. My name is Doug Goodman, and for the next half hour or so, we're going to bring you up to date, as we usually do once a month, here on Studio One TV, an update on what's happening in our Marshall Public Schools. And once again with me is our very special guest, Superintendent of Marshall Public Schools, Scott Munson. Welcome, Scott.
Thanks, Doug. I appreciate being here.
Well, this is our first recording, and we're actually here at the Marshall Middle School in the boardroom, research development room. There's a professional development room, and this is taped, and then it will be shown over the next couple of weeks. But again, from school board meetings to special guests, and we do have a number of special guests that you're going to be interviewing a little bit later on in the show. But we're very excited again to be back in school. It's January. It's cold, but so far we're off to a great start, aren't we?
I think we are. You know, the break is always a nice time for everybody to kind of gather their strength back sometimes and energy and spend time with families and celebrate the holidays and whatnot. And once we get into January, you know, we recognize that we're typically on the downslope to the end of the year, but it's a busy time for everybody as well. And there's a lot of things going on, and many of those things that we're going to talk about over the course of the next few months, I'm sure.
Sounds great. And of course, I mentioned this is Tiger Talk. And of course, you can view this on your community access channels, which are Charter Channel 180 and VAST 17. You can also go online, and I think more and more people are starting to do this, where they go to MarshallStudio1TV.com, and you can actually watch school board meetings, you can watch city council meetings, you can watch this show as many times as you want. But it is an opportunity, once again, to share some of the wonderful things that are happening in our Marshall Public Schools with you, the viewer. And then also maybe later on, Alex will put maybe a website down at the bottom or a phone number where if you do have questions about whatever we're talking about today, you can contact the school district or even contact Scott himself and get those questions answered. And that's important, that we try to keep everybody updated as much as possible.
Absolutely.
So Scott, I know that our topic today is English learners, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep, we want to talk a little bit. We've got 3 special guests that'll be coming up here shortly and talk a little bit about our English Learner program and some of what it means. You know, a lot of folks may not understand what is an English learner. What does a program consist of? What does a typical day look like for our staff members who work with students who are English learners, and how do we help them, and what type of changes are taking place. So we've got a list of questions that we'll run through with Vicki and Lori and Amanda and try to help our viewers understand a little bit more about that program and that aspect of our school district.
Sounds great. And I know those 3 are sitting in the back of the room right now, just anxious to get up here on the camera. So without further ado, we're going to take just a very quick couple of second break, and we'll be right back with Scott and those 3 very special guests. Thank you.
Hi everybody, welcome back to Tiger Talk TV. Pleased today to have 3 very special guests and staff members with me to talk a little bit about our English Learner program. And I'm going to let them go ahead and introduce themselves and maybe share about how long they've been in the district and what their specific title is. And then we've got some questions that we'll walk through and try to help our viewers learn more about our English Learner program. So Amanda, you're a familiar guest here, or an often guest, if that's such a thing, but maybe if you could go ahead and introduce yourself quickly and talk about your role in the district.
Sure. I'm Amanda Grinager. I am the Director of Teaching and Learning for Marshall Public Schools, and as part of my duties, I am the EL Coordinator for the district. Oh, and I've been here since 1999.
All right, I'm Lori Dyce, and I've been here since 1980. Not always as an English language teacher. As of now, I work at the Marshall Middle School, and I teach English learners 5th grade through 8th grade.
And I'm Vicki Radloff, and I have been here since 2000, not always as an English teacher, English language teacher, and I am at the high school 9 through 12.
Thank you, ladies. So we all know what EL means, stands for, looks like, consists of, all of those things, but how would each of you or all of you characterize or explain what an English learner is when a student in the Marshall Public Schools who is an English learner student, what does that mean?
I'll take this one. English language learner is somebody who is either identified through their home language questionnaire, which everybody fills out, as learning English as their first language, or at their home, a different language is mostly spoken.
Okay.
So they have to fill out a home language questionnaire, and then we put them through a test called the WAPT, and we check their English in the areas of listening, speaking, reading, and writing.
Okay, so families fill out the questionnaire and they say, yes, my son or daughter speaks English well or is learning it, and that helps us along with some sort of an assessment to figure out which kids we
Right.
need to spend a little extra time with and help them learn English.
Right.
So parents will say that their student learned a different language other than English first, or that's their main language that this child speaks, or that is a different language is their main language in their home. So those are the 3 questions that are asked, and if they select one or all of those, then we're gonna have an interview with that student and try to identify if they need to take the WAPT.
Okay.
That'll determine their English proficiency.
Which is a screening tool
Yeah.
essentially to help us really understand what their skills and knowledge and abilities are relative to speaking, reading, understanding the English language.
Absolutely.
Okay. In our district, kindergarten through 12th grade, what are we looking at for the number of students that we have? And it can be approximate because it probably varies a little bit from week to week or whatever.
Oh,
but
I
what
have
are we
an
looking
exact
at?
number today.
Okay, great.
This fall, we started or I should say last spring, we were at around 350. About a month ago, we were at 381, and currently we are at 398. So we are growing very quickly in this population.
And for everybody's reference, when we talk about 398, I believe you said students, that would be K through 12, and we're just shy, I think, of 2,500 students in those grades total. So it's a pretty significant population. And how about staffing to, like we have X number of first grade teachers and 5th grade teachers and math teachers. What does our EL staffing look like district-wide?
We are at 12.4 as of today, because in January we added a few positions because of the growing need of our population.
So 12.4 full-time
FTEs.
teachers
FTEs,
who are
yeah.
either licensed or working on
In the
that
process.
license or working in the capacity of helping English learners. Ladies, I want to direct this question to you, if you would. Maybe tell our audience a little bit, what does a typical day look like for you? How, bell rings or you're supposed to be there at a certain time, and there's a lot of things that happen in between when you go home for the day. But what does it look like for those of us that haven't done it before?
Scott, I'd like to go back as to why we have so many students coming to Marshall. And I think it says a lot about our community. People want to come here because it's a safe, mid-sized town that is known for having jobs and having a quality school. And that says a lot about the Marshall community. People want to come to a place that they know that their family is able to grow and be safe.
That's a great point, Lori, and I think sometimes it's a good reminder for us that there are folks who want to enroll their children here, want to live in our community, like you said, because of the overall environment, the opportunities, not only outside the school district, but certainly inside the school as well. That's an excellent point, so thank you for bringing that up. And we have seen, like Amanda talked about, we have seen a rise in our EL population, and we're doing everything we can. Like Vicki said, we've added some staff members. I think it was 2 positions earlier this year in response to seeing that number increase, and we're going to continue working on that. So, Lori, I'll come back to you, but Vicki, when you get to school, what does a typical day look like for you? What do you do?
Before the bell rings, I usually have students already in my room. And to address even the 398 students that we have students who have tested out of the program. So they don't really leave us. They're part of our family, or whatever you want
Sure.
to say, the Marshall family, so they're still involved. And then we teach in blocks at the high school. So it's a 90-minute block. And this semester, it switches for me occasionally. Right now I have, the first block I have beginners.
Okay.
And then second part of 2, I have a 45-minute math class, and then advanced students. Then I have lunch, but our lunch is actually a homework time. And so the students come in for homework help and that type of thing in the room. And then fourth block is the intermediate students that I have. And next year, if I'm right, Amanda, we're going to have another biology class, which is either co-taught. And so I don't know if I'm going to be teaching that, but somebody on our staff will be teaching that. And we try to every other year have either a biology or social studies or some kind of science taught. And then after school, we have after school homework help. And then it's like 6 o'clock, and then it's just whoever calls after that.
Sure.
And emails.
So it sounds like there's some real good support in there for our EL students, at least in the role that you have in your department.
And we've been really lucky this year because we've had professors from the SMSU come over and volunteer. And so it's been very nice because they come over during classes and also during that study hall for 11 until 12 and help students because you can't get to all of them all the time. So that's a real, and their expertise areas of math and history really help out a lot.
Okay.
I'd like to clarify just one thing. Vicki talked about her courses and what they're called. When we identify a student, we categorize them as either new to country, beginners, intermediate, or advanced.
Right.
And that's based on their score on the WAPT or their access score, which is the test that they all take yearly.
And that's how they find their way into those classes that you were
Right.
talking about. So Vicki, when you're working with, let's say, first block, for example, are those large groups of students? Are they 1-to-1, 2-to-3, different things like that?
Last semester, if you would have asked me, I would have said they were large. They were 21, 22. And now, because we've added the other position, they are 12 and 13, which
Great.
is really nice. And you get to know the students better and you get to work with them because it's not just the language, it's all the other things that come with it. You're new to a new country. There's other things that you don't, hidden agendas we call them, like do you go down the right side of the stairs and come up on the left, or that's a little thing, but it can mean a lot to a student who is a teenager and wants to fit in.
And it goes back to that support, just and I think when you talked about how when you get to school, there's often kids in your classroom
Yeah.
before school starts because they know that that's a safe place that they can get the support. And not everything is academic focused. Some of it may also be things that we take for granted sometimes, that we know we're supposed to do different procedures because we've been around, we understand that. So that's great. Super. Lori, how about you? What's your day look like?
My day looks a lot like Vicki's day. We start working with groups of students. I might have an intermediate group that I start with, and then I might go to a beginner's group, to an advanced group, back to a beginner's group. It has to all mesh together with all of the grades and all of the schedules. Then we also have Project Success, where we work after school with students. And I think one of the really fun parts of our job is we get to know the families. So I might have a student in 5th grade and then all the way through 8th grade. So I get that student for 4 years and I really get to know them. Well, they pass on to Vicki and perhaps a sibling's already coming up to me in 5th grade. That builds a lot of trust. It builds a lot of background knowledge for them and for me.
And how about numbers of students in your classes or periods, or how do you approach how you work with them?
It varies. The smallest class I have is 9 and the largest I have is 18.
Okay.
So we certainly have to work together and have good classroom management.
Absolutely. And try to be creative at times, I
Right.
would imagine as well.
What I find, though, is the students that I work with are so eager to learn. They've been talking about America for years. They want to be here. So they're willing to work with somebody else. If I say, hey, I taught you this concept last week, will you help this one get it? They want to take advantage of the education system.
Well, and that's a great way for students to learn different things too, is to teach it to others. It just kind of takes them to another level, so, good.
Yeah, and even after they leave Lori's program and come to the high school, and after they leave high school, a lot of them that go to college say, we want to come back and talk to the students and tell them how to be successful in 8th grade and 9th grade while you're getting ready, because, take it seriously and learn what you can to go on, so.
Great.
And when they get to high school, they always ask if I'm like Lori, and
Just say we're twins.
it works.
Makes sense. Amanda, do you know, like, how many different languages do we have that are what we would call native or home languages in our district? I've heard differing numbers.
We have 21 different languages in our district. Only 10 of those, though, fall under the EL.
Okay.
So of our EL program, we have 10 different languages that are spoken.
Okay.
But we have kids who have either tested out or just other circumstances that have brought them to the United States, but they speak another language. So
And out of those 10, what would be the primary ones that we would see the majority of our students having?
we've seen a change in the last year. A year ago, it would have been Spanish would have been our highest, and then Somali, and then Korean, and now the top two have flipped. So our highest number right now are Somali, and then Spanish, and then Korean.
Okay. But 21 languages that are spoken by
In
our
our district.
students and whatnot. I've heard the term a few times now, tested out. What does that mean? You know, you test out of something, but what does it mean for a student in terms of, okay, I've tested out of being an English learner? What does it mean?
In February, our students are given a test, administered a test, that is called the Access Test.
Mhm.
It's a nationally normed test. 30-some states have it now, which works nice because if they go to another state
Sure.
or they come to us, we can look at those scores and know. So when Amanda talked about newcomers may be up to 1 on that scale or 1.5, and it goes up to 5. Well, it goes up to 6, but we exit at 5.2 or 5, depending on the child.
Okay.
And so every February, they take this test. And then as they progress through the system, we can see where they are, and then at some point, if they've reached that level, we can say, you are done now with ESL, and you are capable of handling everything in a classroom. So that's testing out.
Okay.
And I will clarify, we do require them to have 2 components of meeting a requirement at K4, 5, 8, and 9, 12. They're all a little bit different, but we require them to meet 2 of those. So it could be the access test, it could be our MCA, they have to be proficient or exceed the MCA grade level expectation. It could be the NWEA test, so they could be at the mean RIT for that particular grade level. In our K through 4, we also allow Ames web data to be a point that they could be proficient, identified as proficient. And then another criteria, though, is EL teacher or administrator or counselor recommendation that they have met their requirements to test out. So they have to meet 2 of those criteria for them to exit the program.
And we would want students to certainly get the support that they need to be successful in school and outside of school, but is it sort of a goal that we have that we also exit students or prepare them to exit?
Yeah.
That would be the sign of a successful program, is that students are making the progression from beginner to testing out.
Okay.
That we're teaching in a way that they are learning the English so that they can access the content in a regular classroom.
Okay.
And we would say then they're more college or career ready.
All right.
Our ultimate goal is English language proficiency. And if they're exiting, we are hoping that they have met that.
So good transition, Lori, when you said that students exiting out of the EL program, that's an indicator of success. What else does success look like for our EL program, our staff, our students, their families, our district? What other things, indicators of success, if you will, do we look for in our program?
I think we look for people want to come here because they know we have a good school system, and then we look at the data. How quickly do students make the progression from not knowing English in listening, speaking, reading, writing, to be able to go to a content, understand, and achieve in that class?
Great.
And I look at graduation rates. If our students are graduating not only on time, even if it takes them another year, and then going to college, and if they stay in college.
Sure.
You know, you can get accepted and go that first semester, and then all of a sudden, do we lose them, or are they still going on? And last year, we had a big success rate in our students who applied for SMSU and are still continuing on. So,
Great.
and we have a few that will graduate next year that I'm really proud of what they've done and accomplished. A couple years ago, I don't know that they would have been able to do that. So,
Which is certainly a good tie-in, if you will, to the world's best workforce and one, maybe 2 of the components of that being 100% graduation and also being college and career ready. So those are both sort of sub-themes that I'm hearing in the messages. Amanda, anything else in terms of indicators of success per se that you would add? Or?
Well, I'd just like to add, I think an indicator of a successful program is people who are truly advocating for their students. And we have great teachers who do that. Teachers who will do anything for their students. I know these ladies work after hours doing all sorts of things, making sure that they have warm coats, making sure that they have beds. So there's a variety of things that they do after hours too. And I just think having strong parent involvement where parents feel comfortable coming into the school and talking to the teachers, trusting the teachers like Lori mentioned. And so parent satisfaction is a huge piece that goes along with that as well.
Great. Lori, what's the best part of your job?
Watching the students go from we can just look at each other to within a year we can joke with one another. It's just fascinating to watch the language develop. And I think of the things that the families have done to get here, and that's our great-great-grandparents. They're coming here because they know they can have a wonderful life with health care, with education, with a safe home. They'll eventually become a citizen and get to vote.
Sure.
And just watching, they can't say anything, I can't say anything to them, and then all of a sudden we can laugh together.
And understand pretty much everything.
And understand
that's
why
being
we're
said.
laughing.
Absolutely.
So.
And Vicki, how about you?
Well, I'd like to say it was you, Scott, but no.
I don't blame you if you don't. So, yep.
No, it is the same thing she's talking about. They come in and they're these fresh faces and they're so eager to learn, and then they learn and they come back, and I have lots of students who come back, which makes me very happy. That's that intrinsic motivation to keep going because they're just amazing and the things that they're accomplishing. And like she was saying about our forefathers, and they came here and couldn't speak any language and kind of had to learn a lot of it on their own. And now we have just that many more people that, and at that time, when my grandfather came here, it was your work ethic. If you could farm well, you'd be okay. Well, it's a different generation now. You have to be able to use a computer and do all those type of things. So your way of showing other people you're proficient is totally different.
Yeah, it is
So,
definitely
yeah,
changed.
yeah.
Very much so.
Yeah.
Amanda, anything to add, or ladies, anything you'd like to add before we wrap up?
I think that we're always evaluating our program and trying to make improvements and make it stronger. And again, I think the key to success is having great teachers like we do.
And I would echo that. I think we have wonderful staff, you three being a part of that, obviously, and appreciate all of the work that you do, as well as taking time to share a little bit about our English Learner Program and what's happening in the Marshall Public Schools. If anyone has questions about that, they certainly can contact any of these three ladies, and they'll be able to either answer your question or certainly direct you to someone with the answer. So ladies, thank you for being here. Appreciate not only that, but everything that you do and what you've shared, and keep up the great work. And I guess on behalf of everybody at the school district, I'd like to say thank you for watching Tiger Talk Television. Have a great day.